we are over halfway through the season. We've got 25 games left for these guys, 20 here, and 19 here. And then the North Division is retired. And there's nothing to make me think that we're going to see it again next year. And yeah, so it's been a lot of fun. I think Montreal's in the driver's seat for that fourth and final playoff spot. But let's go through it. Because honestly, it's going to be an interesting schedule, especially in Montreal's case, coming out of the COVID pause, where they've gone roughly a week without playing, more than a week. And so all those games they were going to play during that time will get squashed into a short period. And how's that going to affect them? So I wanted to just rely on the numbers from these teams playing against each other. And just assume that them playing against teams ahead of them, they'll probably go about 500 and that kind of idea. And what direct control do these guys have over where they finish? And it's not really a surprise that the Canucks right now have the least amount of control over where they finish. Maybe. So, 25 games left for Montreal. They have 37 points, 14, 8, and 9 record. Their goal differential is a positive 13. They are the only team on this board with a positive goal differential, meaning scored more than they've allowed. April 3rd to 17th, they have 8 out of 9 games at home. That 2-week period, there are a lot of games, but most of them are at home. And how they play over that part of the schedule will likely tell us whether they're home and clear and they're in a playoff spot, or they lost those games at home and now they have to look over their shoulder at either Vancouver or Calgary. So I'm still looking at this team with so many games in hand and saying, okay, so this should be winnable for Montreal. But with the new schedule and how squashed it all is, it could be very interesting. We've seen with Dallas, those games in hand, playing all those games in a short period can be really tough on a team. You start dealing with a lot of injuries and you don't have the time to heal up. You don't have practice time either. So they have 4 games over a 7-day period, and I measured from Sunday to Saturday for this stat because if it was any 7-day period, it just becomes a nightmare. So between the Sunday and Saturday, they play 4 games 4 times between now and the end of the season, which is far and above more than anybody else on the board is playing. In fact, these 3 teams combined to do it 5 times, and Montreal does it 4. It's going to be busy. I'm going to be watching a lot of Montreal hockey between now and the end of the season. Over their last 10 games, they are 4, 2, and 4. So, to their benefit, they've lost 4 games in extra time. They've only won 4, but they've got points in 8. Montreal's very good at making sure they get points. And it's been a running joke that, they tie it up just so they can lose in overtime. Right. They get points that way, and it's really benefited them so that they don't have to worry as much about teams catching up to them as long as they take care of the games they have to. So how many times do they play against other teams on this board? Well, Ottawa, they play them a lot. Of course, they're done with Vancouver. So Ottawa, they play April 1st in Ottawa, April 3rd at home. So those are a couple of key games right out of the gate. Got to win those, and Ottawa's been a struggle for them this year. Then they have 2 against Calgary in Montreal on April 14th and 16th. April 17th, they're at home against Ottawa, so this is all part of that long homestand here. Well, almost all homestand of 8 of 9 games anyways. Then they go to Calgary for 3, April 23rd, 24th, and 26th. Very key for Calgary. If they can win 2 out of those 3, then you change this entirely. And again, they'd have to win those in regulation. Don't let them get points, or else there's more of a chance of me wearing this for playoff games than there is for Calgary. Versus Ottawa on May 1st, and then at Ottawa May 5th. So they have a lot of games left against Ottawa and Calgary. 5 against both of them. So against Calgary, they're currently 1-3. That's an issue where they've got to turn that record around, or else Calgary could jump over them. Against Ottawa, they're 2-1-2. So they've only lost 1 in regulation, but they've only won 2 out of 5. It's the magic of the NHL and their 500 system, right? Against Vancouver, 6-0-3, but they are done with Vancouver. Vancouver is done with them. They cannot get points against Vancouver anymore. And out of their 37 points, 15 have come at the expense of the Vancouver Canucks, which is, 40%? Yeah. So at home, they're 6-5-2, and away from home, they're 8-3-7. So again, you can look and say, well, they've only lost 3 in regulation on the road, and I can answer with they've won 8 out of 18 on the road. So again, it all depends on how you look at it. Montreal, I still think, is in the driver's seat, but those games, as compressed as that schedule is, could make it really tough. Now for Calgary, 16, 17, and 3. They're 2 points back. They've played 5 more games than Montreal. So they're going to need Montreal to kind of fall off and quickly if they're going to get close. The 2 points to me is, it's nice that they and Vancouver are 2 points back, but they've played so many more games than Montreal. It's kind of a we'll wait and see. So for Calgary, they have a negative 12 on their goal differential. So they do get blown out on occasion. April 4th to 26th, 9 out of their 12 games are at home. And at home, their record is much better than away from home. So that's a key thing to look at for Calgary. They've got 4 games in 7 days twice. So they're not as busy as Montreal, but who is? Over their last 10, they're 5-5. Frustratingly average and mediocre for Calgary over their last 10 games. They look like they're getting it together, and then they don't. Of course, they've made the coaching change. Since the coaching change, it's kind of been more of the same. One up, one down. Couple down, couple up. Now, they're at Vancouver on March 31st. Then they're at home against Vancouver on April 8th and April 10th. So for Montreal, this is to their benefit that these guys are against each other. So they can't both get 2 points those nights. Versus Ottawa, April 19th and 20th. And before that, they're at Montreal April 4th, 14th, and 16th. I actually missed this, and then I caught it on this one. So that's the nice thing with all 4 of them on the board. Versus Montreal, then April 23rd, 24th, 26th. So the 5 games against Montreal tell you what you need to know. If Calgary can manhandle the Montreal Canadiens, if they can win 4 out of 5 of those final 5 games, then Calgary could be in the driver's seat. They also have a game against Vancouver on May 8th. So Vancouver will play a role in this too, because they have 4 games left against Calgary. Against Montreal, they're 3-1. Against Ottawa, a troubling 2-4-1. So Ottawa absolutely can hurt these teams' ability to make the playoffs. And against Vancouver, they're 4-2. So again, if Vancouver had won one of those games, who knows? With 20 games left, 11 of them are against teams on the board. Like Montreal has 10 out of 25 against teams below them, which means Montreal has a much tougher schedule than the other teams as well. So it's not just that all squashed together, but they're playing Winnipeg, Toronto, and Edmonton 15 out of the last 25 games. So again, we'll see how they do. At home, Calgary's 9-6-1, and away from home, they're 7-11-2. So they much prefer the road, apparently, or much prefer being at home to being on the road, at least this season. Vancouver. So Vancouver, there's a few things with Vancouver that, lead me to think it's probably not going to happen, but we'll see, right? So they're 16, 18, and 3. They're 2 points back, same as Calgary. They've played 6 more games. They've got 1 more regulation loss. Other than that, the record is exactly the same as Calgary's. They have a negative 20 in their goal differential, which is 8 below Calgary, and it's 33 below Montreal. April 3rd to 14th, they have a 7-game road trip. Vancouver, up until their most recent road trip, not a great road record. They need to have a great road record. That 7-game road trip, I'll say they have to win 5. They have to win 5 of those to really have that chance of getting that 4th spot. They have 4 games in 7 days once. So yes, Vancouver's schedule was brutal to start the season. It was a rough schedule. But now that they've had their week off, now that they've had their rest, this is the time when they should go out and take advantage of other teams that might be tired. Not that they play Montreal, but take advantage of other teams that might be tired as well. Because with Montreal's schedule being moved around, other teams have had that too. Vancouver doesn't have to worry about that because Vancouver's done with Montreal. So there are some benefits to this, right? So against over their last 10, they're 6-3-1, which is the best record on the board. But yes, they've started to fall off again. And they've started to fall into some bad habits. But maybe that was a Winnipeg thing, right? So against Calgary on March 31st, that one's at home. You got to win that game. Then they have 2 at Calgary, April 8th and April 10th. They're at home against Ottawa on April 22nd and 24th. They go to Ottawa 26th and 28th. So they have 4 games in a row against Ottawa. You want 6 out of 8 points there minimum. And again, it's because they have to make up. They have to basically have a fantastic record from here to really and truly put pressure on Montreal, who have those games in hand. And then May 8th, they're at home against Calgary. So they have 19 games left, and 8 are against teams that are on this board. So they have 11 that are against teams not on the board. So 11 against Winnipeg, Toronto, Edmonton. Edmonton could be key to a lot of these teams and whether or not they're able to actually make a run. Except Ottawa, who are kind of done. Well, I mean, they have one more game with Edmonton, right? And then that's been a disaster zone for them so far this year. So for Vancouver, they're 2-3-1 against Calgary. They're 3-5-1 against Montreal. They're done with Montreal. Versus Ottawa, they're 5-0. So they like playing Ottawa, and they've got 4 more games against them. But the most recent couple of games were a lot closer than the first 3. Ottawa has shown that, you know, they're capable of pushing a team a little bit and playing the spoiler role. They're 12-20-4. Oh, and with Vancouver, they're 9-9-2 at home, 7-9-1 on the road. Their home record, their as far as points percentage, is the lowest of the 4 teams on the board. And again, that's 7-9-1 on the road. It's better than it was after the most recent road trip, but that 7-game road trip, they have to plug away and get some wins. So for Ottawa, 9 points back of the playoffs. They're not going to make it, but at least they're making it interesting. They've played 5 more games than Montreal. They have a goal differential of -41. And April 17th to 24th, they have a 5-game road trip. And if they can do well on that road trip, then they have a shot, but their road record is not good. So that's really what sank them so far this year. They're good at home. On the road, they're not as good. They have 4 games in 7 days twice. And again, that's measuring from a Sunday to a Saturday in any given week. So again, their schedule a little bit more busy than Vancouver's. Vancouver's played the one last game, or one more game, I should say, the one last left. So that makes sense. Over their last 10, Ottawa's 4-3-3. So they've discovered the secret of the Montreal Canadiens. Don't lose in regulation. Keep getting points. Keep plugging away. So they've done that well. April 1st, of course, they're at home against Montreal. Then they go to Montreal on April 3rd. April 17th, they're at Montreal again. If Montreal has further struggles with Ottawa, it could definitely cause them to fall back to where Calgary and Vancouver might be willing to overtake them. April 19th and 20th, they're at Calgary. April 22nd and 24th, they're at Vancouver. So that's the big road trip there. They go through all 3 of these cities and could have an influence on where they end up falling. And then they go home 26th and 28th against Vancouver. May 1st at Montreal. May 5th at home against Montreal. So again, if you're a fan of any of these teams, who you cheer for on any given night will likely depend on who they're against. They're 5-2 against Calgary. I cannot explain why Ottawa's had ownership of Calgary so far this year. They're 3-2 against Montreal, 0-3-2 against Vancouver. So the 2 most recent losses to Vancouver were in extra time. They're still losses. At home, they're 8-6-4, and on the road, they're 4-14. So that's a problem. And out of 20 of their remaining games, 11 of them are against teams on the board. So they and Calgary both have 11 games against teams on this board and can have a direct influence on how things turn out. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting because, again, for Vancouver, they missed out on opportunities to drag Montreal into the muck here and maybe get past them so that, they have those games in hand, but we're past them right now and they have to get those points. But it'll be interesting to see who gets that spot. So does Montreal get it? Do those 5 games in hand matter? Or do the Montreal Canadiens have to play all those games in such a short period of time? Does that lead to some kind of losing streak, injuries, this kind of thing that can happen? Again, pointing at Dallas. And is that going to influence things? Who makes the playoffs in the North? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.